got no power. Yeah, I'm idling, but I've got no throttle. Still not right. The power delivery is not. Something's not right.
Yes. Yeah, we're in a very busy pit lane, and actually, as Lindblad is being pushed back, we've got one of the McLarens also boxing. And in the first 5 minutes of this free practice session, we've seen 3 different teams and
caught his outside front first, heading down towards turn 3. So he's backed out of that lap. And he's improved, again, no, he hasn't, by 2 thousandths as he's come through here. So like for like, Hadjar's at the top of the times. I wouldn't have believed it if you told me that before the start of the session. 17 minutes in, he's going well.
Alex Brundle, Isaac Hadjar, one of the absolute standout performers of last year with an average qualifying position inside the top 10. 9 point something is very impressive in a rookie campaign in a midfielder car.
It really, really is. He was definitely a contender, if not the rookie of the season last year. But boys, I've been checking in on McLaren because they've been out and in again. With Lando Norris, both cars seemingly having electrical issues at the beginning of this first free practice session of the year. Oscar Piastri went out, changed a couple of settings on the steering wheel. They got that car back up and running again, but neither driver really that happy with the car they've got underneath them at the moment. I checked in as well on Arvid Lindblad, was really confused at the end of the pit lane that A, the anti-stall didn't catch the stall, and B, the system that they had in place to refire that car didn't appear to be working either. So the early reliability casualties in this session all seem to be electrical in nature so far. Another note for you, just from the regaling you with tales of Formula 2 this morning, the track is in pretty good nick, guys. The Formula 2 drivers in free practice were really close, even to what they achieved in qualifying last year. So I would say the track in a better condition than it has been when we've arrived in Albert Park in previous years.
Rubbing it in on Wednesday.
You can see Palmer back behind the wheel of a racing car for the first time in a while. He took a supercar round. You can see it in the build-up to the Australian Grand Prix and our pre-race show on Sunday.
Yeah, 4 laps. Try to stay on the racing line. There might be a bit of wide apexes that'll be rubbing in as well. It was a lot of fun.
Rubbing in all curbs and runoffs now, Jolyon Palmer.
Yeah, slightly late flight arriving, and Palmer, first thing he did was look out the window to see whether it was wet when we landed.
Yeah. Just the 24-hour travel time, and let's hop into a supercar. But yeah, a lot of fun. Nice to see get a view around the circuit as well, because it had changed since I last drove it here. So you realise how fast those sweeping sections, particularly in towards 9 and 10 are, especially in a supercar where you've got plenty of power and not the downforce these things have got, even though they're missing a little bit compared to last year. This section here is incredibly quick. You see Hadjar on an outlap here. So outlaps are going to be interesting. Speaking to a lot of the teams in Bahrain testing, and they were saying it's so critical to have your battery at 100% charge as you start the lap, but to do that you then need to not use it on the outlap as you would have done in the past. You've got to be way more conservative, which means then tyre warming becomes difficult. So you can see Hadjar there doing a lot more aggressive weaving than we're used to seeing, and that is because he's going slower on the straights on the outlap, so he has to get energy through the tyres by doing more work at the steering wheel.
We're used to seeing it on a formation lap, not used to seeing it at this stage of the weekend, but that is the reason why. And the drivers, certainly in the first Bahrain test, taking as long poring over the outlap data as they were the push lap data. Extraordinary.
I spoke to Alex Albon in the start of Bahrain test 2, so the last time we ran the cars, and he said he went out in the Williams and did a lap, came back in, and he spent 80% of the time debriefing the outlap, 20% actually looking at how he could go quicker on the fast lap. When people say it's complex, it's complex. That will be ironed out, and once they get a handle on it. The party this year, they missed all of testing in Barcelona, so that was the first time they had the car on the track, and they were looking at how to get the battery topped up, how to keep the tyres in, and all of the techniques that other teams were doing as well with that. But it shows how much everyone is just learning a whole new trade here, really. Trying to deal with these batteries is the big test. The cars are different. I enjoyed seeing Charles Leclerc on that lap that he went to the top of the times, and once again hustling at the wheel through the final sector. The cars are a bit more lively, agile with a slight moment there through the apex. They want to just dance a little bit more at the rear. They don't have the downforce. They're a shorter wheelbase. It makes them more nimble, yes, but also a little bit more lively, more of a handful. It's fun to watch. They've also got a huge amount of torque, so Hadjar once again squirming out of the final.
Laurent Mekies starting his first full season as the CEO and team principal of Red Bull Racing. He was a management change in the middle of the last campaign. Welcome back to Formula One. Valtteri Bottas, his old friend Lewis Hamilton in the way.
I got fully blocked fibers. Yeah.
Okay. That wasn't a great one for Hamilton. Sitting on the apex, busy going around the other car that didn't see or didn't hear that Valtteri was coming up behind him. So a shame for Bottas, but he is out on circuit. If a little bit late to get some proper laps in, and so both Cadillacs now completing some performance running. Hamilton was on a good lap on the last lap, did close it out as well to improve and just get 600ths away from Charles Leclerc, his teammate. Ferrari's in second and third and running nicely as Verstappen jumps to the top.
Verstappen, Hadjar, Leclerc and Hamilton. Antonelli and Liam Lawson, then George Russell, Gabriel Bortoleto, Oliver Behrman and Esteban Ocon are the top 10. Oscar Piastri back out on the racetrack, Alex Brown.
He certainly is, and looking a little bit happier. A notable presence out on the racetrack. A notable absence, guys, after the Bahrain testing. I've yet to see one lockup. And we assumed after Bahrain testing that it was going to plague these cars all year long with the amount of recharging they had to do in the braking zone. Drivers were saying in Bahrain that it would be an issue that was situational. It was very very windy through testing. Not rainy this year. But it appears that here they're much more on top of it.
Or they're leaving a little bit more margin at this stage as well. But I completely agree. We saw Max have the lock-up at turn 3. It's been the only real one so far. And that was going to be one of my big headlines from testing. Drivers were struggling so much with the brakes. So it's been something they seem to have got a great handle of at the moment. And again, I was speaking to a couple of them in Bahrain and they were saying, well, it's okay having lock-ups here. We can go off track, come back on. It's fine. Wait till we get to Melbourne, because if we go off, as you can see right now, it's gravel and grass runoffs or just a barrier there. So there's probably a little bit of margin baked in. And it does seem generally that the cars are a little bit easier to drive in the braking zones.
Focusing personal best through 2 sectors for Lando Norris. And the new world champion having a tricky start to the session, both drivers saying that things didn't feel calibrated. They've been in, they've made fixes, and this McLaren with a swooping low nose is coming to turn 16 of the racetrack, and through the heat haze on a glorious 20-degree day comes the world champion on the medium tyre, and he goes up to 15th, just behind Oscar Piastri.
It's important that they get running in this session. I mean, that should be obvious, but more so than ever because of the learning that needs to happen. If this were last year, a team could have a nightmare FP1 and they'd be able to come back. They've got historical data. They'd look at what they did last year. They'd look at the setup parameters and figure it all out. But they need to have at least one car collecting data. So in that early phase, when you had both Oscar and Lando in the pits, that would have been a bit of a sweaty time there for McLaren. But they are now both out, and hey, I rub it in the truck. I didn't rubber in that bit of a cut through there for Carlos Sainz. Filthy through there for him. Yeah, good news for McLaren to be out there.
Carlos Sainz taking evasive action as the drivers build up closer and closer. It is a corner of real brinkmanship, this one.
Still looks like a big challenge. You can hear the feather of the throttle there for Piastri coming through turn 10. It's going to be a bit slower this year than it has been in recent times, but my word, it was quick last year with the ground effect beasts. This year, maybe even more of a challenge with that downforce removed in the high speed. Do you remember last year in the Austin Sprint, the famous double DNF that McLaren had? Max went on to win it, and it cost them for the whole weekend not getting that knowledge. And it's that effect that's going to be amplified by 10 now with the knowledge that is just so important as Piastri gets a much more sensible time on the board this time around. So that's his second proper flyer. They are still playing catch-up, the two McLarens.
Let's have another look at this moment with Carlos Sainz up against the Alpine. Waiting, and then eventually deciding he's had enough of waiting and still staying behind Pierre Gasly.
Wait, he was on a push lap taking 2 downshifts in towards turn 9.
Gasly's teammate, Franco Colapinto, Oh, there's another lock-up for Alex Brundle. Get it marked on the card.
Yeah.
Turn 3, into the gravel.
That is why they're being cautious, because if you have a lock-up, you are lucky to get away without scraping the car through the gravel at FP1 level. So still damaging the underside of the car, still important, if not as crucial as last year. So, drivers have to make sure they keep these things on the track again for that learning. Be there at the end and get some laps on the board.
Let's go downstairs to Alpine, and Ruth is standing by.
Yeah, down here with Franco Colapinto, who was one of the drivers suffering with a lock-up. Went off track. He was able to successfully get back here. And what I've basically been doing exactly what the rest of the engineers and mechanics are doing, which is inspecting the car for damage. It didn't look like a significant amount of car damage, no obvious bits that are off. But what they're going to do now is a full systems check as new front wing is going straight behind me. Don't want to get in the way of these boys. I've already been up all night getting the car ready for it. Front lock-up, the tyre itself didn't look too scrubbed. They actually took that tyre set back off, so it's not like that tyre set is off. However, any minute that you're spending not out on track is costly. So I would expect to see them try to work as quickly as they can to be able to get that car back out on track again. Hopefully, sooner rather than later.
Thank you, Ruth. Eyes and ears for us down there in the pit lane. And thank goodness for the rookie in the field, Arvid Lindblad, who has competed in Formula 3, competed in Formula 2 on his way to 6th place in the championship last year. Three-time race winner and taking the accolade as the youngest ever Formula 2 race winner at just 17 years of age. He is the youngest ever Formula 1 driver from Great Britain, and he finds himself finally circulating around this gorgeous racetrack as he makes his way down to turn 13.
Yeah, plenty of learning for Lindblad still to do, even though he's had the busiest winter that a rookie's had in many a year with the 3 tests and the January start. Again, great news that he's out there and getting some laps on the board. George Russell is out there and he's on a soft tyre. So quite early here for Mercedes to go for a second set of tyres, and they've gone for the soft, the C5 tyre. So it'd be nice if we can have a look at George pushing it on that brand new softest set, and just like that, here he is on an out lap right now, making sure he's got the battery where he wants it. He's got to make sure those tyres are fired up for turn 1. Sweeps through turn 12. This is going to be a tricky braking zone as well, right at the end of the lap. OT is overtake, so that's effectively a DRS when we get into the race. But for now, we don't need to worry too much about that. They're running it all the time in quali mode, and that's what George Russell's doing with the wings open down towards turn 1. Let's see how this goes.
Such a great corner sequence to open up the laps. You get this great overtaking opportunity into 3, the fast sweep through 1 and 2, and then he avoids the lock-up into 3.
It's a real punch down towards turn 3. Tricky traction zones. You could see the Mercedes squirming. This is on the softest rubber now, but you've got so much power at your disposal on those low-speed exits that it is difficult to control. Flashing through turn 6, the only corner in the middle sector. So the middle sector is going to be our best gauge for straight line speed, effectively, but also energy deployment into this next sequence, turns 9 and 10. Harvesting energy, as Sainz was doing, slowing down plenty in towards turns 9 and 10. And he's got such limited areas to recharge around the circuit. That is going to be one of the tricky things, and that's why I think we're seeing Sainz, but also now Russell and plenty of others kind of decelerating into the corner because they're deploying so much on the exits earlier on the straight. It's such a whopping run down Lakeside Drive. A couple of corners to go.
The overtake detection point, that'll be one single line around the racetrack. Gives you the extra power for the entirety of the lap automatically if you're within 1 second of the car in front. It is the replacement for DRS as an overtaking aid in Formula 1.
Well, the lap time absolutely drifted away for Russell there as it went on. So he lost 4 tenths to Leclerc, who has the fastest middle sector. You could see that he was harvesting plenty of energy up at this section in towards turn 9, and as we see Sainz go again, we'll see more of that. He's taking downshifts down towards turn 9. So energy limited around this circuit, and that is going to be a baffling thing for the drivers to get their heads around. is better on other straights where they're shorter and punchier, but that long drive out of a quick corner at 6, that's going to be a real head scratcher. Sainz on the hard tyres, of course, with a bit less grip. Ooh, way less grip if he's out there.
Such a balance between learning an entirely different language behind the wheel, if you like, and then still trying to find the limit. That's going to be the fascinating story across today. When we get the long runs later on in FP2 and then the quali simulations, balancing it all together looks mighty tough.
I've never in my life on a fast lap downshifted on a straight, but it's the way that the harvesting's working. So they're having to harvest energy. So it's a super clip where you stay flat out, and the electric motor, basically, instead of deploying energy, starts harvesting it at 250 kilowatts at that moment. Let's see Sainz, this is where it goes wide. It looks so much calmer on board than it did outside, but just a little bit of understeer still through that apex. Williams struggling for performance on a hard tyre, and we know that is a heavy car still at the start of the year, and it just looks sluggish out there compared to some of the livelier, darty cars that we've seen at the top of the times.
Yeah, you can tell that trackside in Bahrain testing. We had 2 tests in Bahrain, 1 shakedown in Barcelona. And Williams, after so much talk of what 2026 could represent for that team, who leapt up to 5th place in the Constructors' Championship last year, hoping to whittle away the weight as we go through the year. If you think of a perfect example of that, the last time we had a regulation change, Red Bull started the year heavy, took them a long time to get that car down to the minimum weight required. When they did, they basically ran all the way through the victories through 2023. Alex?
A couple of little techniques starting to emerge, guys, as I'm across radio chatter and also watching the onboard. Firstly, we spotted in Bahrain, it's happening again, the very keen downshifting technique, getting down the gears. I've been watching Oscar Piastri, and he's been doing it very heavily, down into turn 3, really putting some revs through the car, and also into turn 11, either charges the battery or keeps the turbocharger spinning and assists them with their energy management. The second one I heard from Nico Hulkenberg's radio a little earlier on in the session, where you were talking about outlaps, being reminded to keep the straight line mode closed during their outlaps. That's to maintain the load on the tyre and stop so much of the temperature escaping for the tyre as they're trying to build up that temperature and also build up the battery. So a couple of interesting things playing out. Sergio Perez is going to be seeing less interesting things, though. Is he? Because he's lost a mirror.
You're not looking in the mirrors anyway on a fast lap. He'll worry about that on the next lap.
He's looking for you in that supercar.
Yeah, you just see on the right-hand side the new entrant into Formula One having this issue of getting up and running. It happens across testing in the early rounds. You get it across the entire season, so something for them to fix. Max Verstappen going very quickly, first section of the racetrack.
Yeah, Perez still harvesting energy, or not deploying on the end of the long straights, but not having the extreme harvesting of the Williams in towards turns 9 and 10. So the power just ramping down as he hits the 300 kph speed, and then you're not getting that absolute kick that you're getting on the exit of the corners. Verstappen's going quickly. Nice to finish out a lap with the Cadillac team. You can see the mirror's gone on the right-hand side as Perez manages to find a small little improvement. Takes him within 5 seconds. But for how long, Alex Jakes?
Let's find out in Max Verstappen. He's had a couple of retirements here in recent years. And with a brand new power unit, goes 0.3 of a second faster than anyone else so far on that soft tyre, compared to Charles Leclerc's best on the medium. And strong final sector for him.
And giddy up, because Charles Leclerc's on a soft tyre on an outlap as well. That's bad news for Norris.
Out of the car.
Out of the car. So Piastri's back out on circuit, still on that first set of mediums, having had the issue early on. But Norris, the reigning champ, starting the season out of the car with only 7 laps on the board. That's the mirror going. Is it for Checo on the right-hand side? High speed, vibrations, and off it pops. At least a Cadillac's worries at the moment. Yeah,
starting from scratch for a project in Formula One, very difficult to do. That's the CEO of Cadillac. Proud day for him to see the team roll out onto a Grand Prix circuit for the first time in a round of the World Championship.
Here we go, Leclerc, soft tyres. Let's see what he can do. Hadjar's just done another impressive lap. He's having a great FP1 here, getting within 2/10 of Verstappen, like for like, or so it seems anyway, in terms of the run plan and the tyre choice. And you're very, very competitive at the moment for that second Red Bull. Russell improved on a second lap, but let's have an eye on the Ferrari here, on the softs. Hamilton is just behind him, about to launch into a flying lap himself as Charles sweeps through the end of the first sector. Flat through turn 5 there, I think with, again, a bit of harvesting going on at this stage. The track will grip up and the speeds will come up as well. Neck and neck with Verstappen, but not actually an improvement through the first part of the lap there for Charles, who already had the fastest first sector, still does.
Still in contention to match Verstappen's time. High-speed sweep of direction is always impressive here. He continues on, a tenth to the good. The driver with the fastest time in testing. A test, as Jolien told you, that was categorized by all the big four. McLaren, Mercedes, Ferrari and Red Bull all pointing at each other and going, oh, they look quick. No, we're fine. They're not rapid. The joy of today is we're actually going to get answers to those questions. Hamilton out there on a push lap as well. Also on the soft tyre, 0.3 of a second away from Verstappen's best. This is the end of Charles Leclerc's effort. He comes across the line to one of the straight zones and he goes very nearly 0.08 of a second fast.
Ferrari kind of shown they can do it in all three sectors, just not all at the same time. Leclerc with a much better final sector on that lap on the soft tyre, so there should be much more grip now. The track rubbering in, even if it started in a better nick, it's still going to be the sort of circuit where you find a little bit more with every lap. Hamilton improves in the final sector, but couldn't hook it up at the start of the lap. So, again, they might be looking to outlap prep there, as we see his new race engineer.
A change being made. I have to say it felt inevitable, given some of the radio messages that we heard last year, that there would be a personnel change in that role from 2025 to 2026. Lewis Hamilton, objectively, coming off the worst season of his career. Not even on the podium on one occasion. He did have a sprint victory in China, but very, very unusual for Hamilton. In fact, a very, very unusual situation for Lewis Hamilton to not be on a front row. First time that had happened in his Formula One career. Not on the front row at any stage of the season, not on a podium either, and he looks to bounce back with a new set of regulations he's been looking forward to for a long time.
Yeah, and he was saying as well that this is a car that he's been part of the development of. The last year's car was the end of the Ferrari road, the end of the journey on the ground effect, and he simply joined it for the last year. The design of the car had already been in the wind tunnel for a long time when he was still at Mercedes. It was very much something that Charles Leclerc and then Carlos Sainz, who he replaced at Ferrari, had been working on in the sim, and of course the design team at Maranello as well. But this time Hamilton's been across what's been going on for this year, for a lot of last year. So that disappointing season, he had an eye towards this year, and he seems to be enjoying life a little bit more. I mean, he was not enjoying it at all at the end of last year, was he? It was not what Lewis Hamilton signs up for, to be running around in the midfield or even further back. But this year Ferrari seemed good. Leclerc's at the top of the times, Hamilton's competitive, and Lewis has a spring in his step again.
90 minutes to go. When you've done Formula One testing and you do 4 hours in a session, suddenly an hour doesn't feel very long at all, and you're seeing the cars out on track for the first session of round 1 of the World Championship. Fernando Alonso not heading out. Aston Martin, their issues well documented, saying yesterday they do not expect to finish the first Grand Prix of the season. The power unit creating massive vibrations, which is limiting their reliable running in testing, and they expect that to continue as well. They do have a fix, they believe, for this weekend. Just 3 installation laps for Lance Stroll in this session as well.
Yeah, almost no point in them running, or it's almost not possible for them to run, the state that they're in at the moment. So we saw Perez have the wing mirror, the glass pop out as well there. Oh, and now we've got Bottas with the same issue. So it's obviously something that other teams are struggling a little bit with vibrations, and Aston Martin have sort of said that, and other teams have said, you know, this is something that is happening generally, but Aston Martin are obviously in an absolute mess with their package at the moment in terms of running it. They're not able to run it in any sort of performance configuration. They're away on all parameters right now, but it's simply not a drivable car. So it's a horrible start to the year for them, to say the least. And yeah, Stroll back in the garage. Alonso not taking part in this session, as we see Hamilton just, there we go, a little bit of oversteer into understeer, into oversteer on the exit, into another punch of oversteer as he jumps on the gas towards the line. And it's a small improvement once again for Lewis, and that's what I like about these cars. When you do jump on board and you see them hustling away through sort of long duration corners, you are seeing the drivers fighting at the wheel. And so is Lando Norris with his Team Quadrant guys in the hospitality, not listening in on the pit wall, just, I'm a champion now, I'll have a coffee and just watch it on the telly.
Here's Isaac Hadjar, who let the Alpine by and then locks up into turn 1 through the gravel.
Right, that was, again, a really weird way to open up a flying lap. How slow he was going to the line to make sure he had 100% battery and then send it.
Wow, that was a big lockup.
And then you get the big lockup, and he's absolutely right.
This was just scraping over the curb. It looked more dramatic trackside, but Lewis Hamilton on the exit of the high-speed chicane.
So the front of the floor still running very low. And then there's varying degrees of rake on the cars. The Ferrari actually not having one of the higher angles, so the rear is not as raised as some of the other ones. The Aston Martin, if we were to see it on track, was very high in pre-season testing. Williams as well, quite high on the rear. Just different design philosophies and different setup philosophies as well at the moment. Ferrari generally in a good place, and that won't hurt Lewis really at all in that corner there.
Back to his teammate, Charles Leclerc pushing on. 16 minutes ago, Verstappen has set the fastest time and looking very competitive out of the box. It looks very close between the last time we had a regulation reset. It was Max Verstappen, Charles Leclerc trading blows for the win week in, week out, and they're the top two at the moment. Early running, of course, though.
I'm impressed with Hadjar, though. Even massive lockup aside, that is something we're going to see all the time. So we've already been discussing it, the lockups. But when you see how slow they're going at the end of the outlap, it's not that warm. 21 degrees air temperature is a very pleasant day, but it is not scorching. We are not we're in the lower end of the temperature range, and that means that getting those front tyres particularly fired up for the first braking zone is going to be difficult when they're trundling around and trundling all the way to the start line to do a prep lap and launch into a flyer. Hey, Bortoletto's on a good one.
Audi having a good day. They were very, very happy with their testing mileage. They were happy with their testing performance. They weren't happy with their starts, but worry about that on Sunday. But apart from that, they had a very, very good test and starting nicely again in this session in what we expect to be a really interesting ebb and flow in the midfield battle.
On a decent lap as well as we watch Bortoletto. Let's see what he can pop on the board here. He's looking competitive. The time dropping away quite a lot towards the end of the lap. So there's plenty of corners in the final sector. So the deployment obviously working well for Audi. New power unit as well. It's impressive how they've hit the ground running. We don't know. I mean, we've got to caveat everything by saying it's FP1. If this were round 7, we'd be saying it's only FP1. Don't read into it too much, but it's too exciting. They're all out there. We want to try and judge everything, as Leclerc doesn't quite improve as well, just missing a bit in the final sector. But the final sector's not really energy limited. It's not a massive run to the line at the end of the lap. It's fairly tight and twisty through 11, 12, 13 and 14, the last 4 turns where we saw Lewis fighting the car a lot.
Charles Leclerc's race engineer, Brian Bozzi, was in your picture a moment ago. And now we check back in with the 6-time Grand Prix winner, Sergio Perez, has gone on board with a Cadillac in Formula 1.
Yeah, this is your one straight zone in the final sector, really, up towards turn 12. Perez through there nicely, bit of understeer in the Cadillac. A little bit underdriven there through 13, cautious at this stage. couple of short shifts there up through the gears, try and take away some of the snappiness of the torque kicking in. Perez on a soft. Hey, he was within 5 seconds before, he's within 4 now.
Considering when that project began, I know it's gargantuan compared to what we've been used to in recent times, but that is impressive considering how complex this rule set is. And they've been asked about what a good season would look like. Both drivers have said progress throughout the year. That's what they're looking for. They're just looking for forward momentum as they build up through their early stages in Formula One. Lewis Hamilton has the fastest middle sector of anyone so far. He's had a wide moment on the curbs on the exit of 10, lots of oversteer when we've been riding on board with him. And now he does have the fastest middle sector. And let's see whether he can continue that momentum. 17.6 middle part of that.
Just got to get stopped for this tricky left-hander. That's 13, and then go through those gears as we saw Perez do. He'll have a bit of a slipstream to the line as well. As a lovely display of the Alpine and the Ferraris. Active aero working there. Hamilton taking that slipstream and getting to the top of the times. New year, new Ferrari, new Lewis.
He will hope so. After chastening times in 2025, Lewis Hamilton is top, ahead of Verstappen and Leclerc, and for all the talk of the gaps increasing, under a tenth between the top three, which is a nice way to start the year. Not a great way to start the first session for Alex Albon, who has come to a halt, brought out the yellow flag. Let's hear from him.
Well, I've lost power steering and everything.
Yeah, complete hydraulic pressure.
Yeah, as soon as he said power steering, you know it's going to be a hydraulic issue. If this is the first time you joined us for Formula 1 this year, the new safety lights on the mirrors have been added. That was a driver request. So there's a light on the side as well as at the back.
Yeah, you could see where the moment the power steering goes as well there. So he's lost the whole whack. Power steering is the classic giveaway, as you say, that the hydraulics are gone. It's essential in Formula One. You'd have so much load through the corners that it'd be really difficult to just hang on to them over one lap at high speed through these sort of corners, the quick turns 9 and 10, without some level of power steering. You can fine-tune it as you want, but you can't do anything about it if you've got a hydraulic leak somewhere. So Albon out, but at least he's had a decent run so far, 24 laps. He has been busy. He's been busier than anyone up until this point. Joint with Hamilton and joint with Leclerc. So the Ferrari's getting plenty of laps and Albon getting plenty, but he will do no more.
I think we're going to have to get a bit of a reset for our expectations of reliability. All the cars finished the last Grand Prix of 2025. If you go back to, say, the first Australian Grand Prix I watched in 1999, they were dropping out of the race lead here. So it's going to be somewhere in between the two, and certainly the early rounds as well. I think we're going to get a lot of jump cuts to cars pulled over exactly as we saw for Alex Albon just a moment ago.
Yeah, part of the unpredictability you get of new regs. It was the same in 2022. At the start of the last set of regulations, there were issues. 2014 was the last time we had a big power unit regulation change, and there was a load of issues then. I mean, there was a mountain of stuff as teams had to get on top of the first iteration of hybrid power units in Formula One. They're complex, and there's still plenty more for everyone to understand and fine-tune. This is just the start of this generation of cars. So Albon being a good lad and helping the marshals.
He's that type of guy, Alex Albon, always has been. Thoroughly polite until the exact moment the visor clicks shut and then becomes a different animal entirely.
Yeah, a real split personality, isn't he? Visor open, okay, how can I help you? He's pulled over at a good spot.
And he gets his Williams back behind with Harris. Gives us a great opportunity to thank the marshals of this event as well. It is a great festival of motor racing at Albert Park, and we can't go racing without the marshals who willingly give their time. It is a very encouraging session for Audi, beginning life in Formula One. 7th and 9th at the moment. Bortoleto heading into his second season. Nico Hülkenberg waited 15 years to stand on a Formula One podium. Entering into another campaign as well. The veteran, nice split between young talent and veteran knowledge at Audi.
Yeah, I was speaking to various personnel in what we expect to be that midfield fight. So Alpine And certainly in there, as we see Colapinto enter the fray. You've got Liam Lawson joining the action there in the Racing Bulls car. Haas very well rumoured to be at the front of that field, certainly in the picture there. They're having a decent winter so far. But then more and more people have been saying, well, Audi actually look pretty good. Had a lot of issues when the car hit the ground in Barcelona. Remember, it's an all-new power unit, all-new entrant, having Audi produce power units in Formula One. And they have plenty to do. But brought a big upgrade package to Bahrain testing, found performance, and they've had a great FP1 here, haven't they?
They have indeed. Lando Norris was out of the car because of a precautionary gearbox check. His teammate continues to circulate on. Sam Collins, what's caught your eye?
Well, the Audi in general, just following on from that chat you were just having. For me, the car that's really stood out to me so far this season in Formula One, okay, we're in free practice 1 of race 1, but we've had a bunch of testing as well. That car and the rate of development Audi have put into that car already is mind-blowing. That car is so complex, so intricate and so detailed. They are really taking it seriously. I've covered Audi in a lot of other championships and they come to win. And I'm not sure they're going all out to win this year, but do not write them off for something really, really special. Just as a separate point, lots of problems for Mercedes-powered cars this morning, aren't there?
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Sam. The calibration to start things off, not simple. George Russell has been speaking in the build-up to this Grand Prix and has been talking a lot about the fact that they know the car is excellent, but he's been talking about reliability openly.
Well, Albon with the Mercedes power unit seemed to be a hydraulic issue. We've got another. And that's a spin, isn't it, for Perez?
You can see it from the tyres. We'll show you the replay in a moment. It was soft tyres for Oscar Piastri, which is why we were with him.
Yeah, I think he's just flashed past us there as we're on board with Checo, recovering from a spin at turn 4, where George Russell had an off. Kimi Antonelli in the race as well, catching the grass on the entry. And that'll throw you into spin. Let's see if Checo's done that or if it's something else.
Cut the grass?
No,
mid-corner.
Yeah, so something's going on with the car there. I mean, it didn't sound healthy as he was heading down towards turn 3. I wasn't sure if that was some odd energy harvesting.
Yeah, I'm having a lot of engine braking. I had a massive one there.
Yeah, so it is partly probably to do with harvesting energy. You do that all on the rear axle with the MG UK, and that's why he carried on pushing, even though it sounded awful in towards turn 3, and then obviously just had a complete rear seize, basically a rear lock-up as he really just pinched the brakes then at the apex. But that looked like something had properly broken for Checo. Obviously managed to find the runoff and get it going again, but it's brake by wire. It's the braking system is controlled, so you've still got hydraulic brakes on the front. You've got the MG UK doing the slowdown on the back, getting that energy harvested back to the battery to then use it on the straights. The harvesting is done partly on the brakes, partly with a super clip. So by using the internal combustion engine against the MG UK on the straights, or by harvesting on part throttle, it's complex. But for Perez there on the rear lock, that was a huge amount and way too much for any driver to save.
So Gabriel Bortoleto is in your picture. Story of the session so far. Lewis Hamilton with the fastest time, with a 1:27.36. Verstappen very close to him, as is Charles Leclerc, who had the fastest middle sector, and then saw that lap time fall away. Hadjar will be encouraged with 4th place. Russell is 0.6 of a second away, but let's see where they are after FP2. Arvid Lindblad, P6 in his first FP1 as a fully confirmed driver. He did 3 last year for Red Bull Racing.
He's just done that pretty quietly as we've been watching Perez recover to the circuit. Lindblad jumps up to 6th for Racing Bull. So again, another one of those teams in the midfield mix. And for a young rookie who's just come 6th in F2, jumping up, that is one heck of a start in FP1. Almost didn't run with his issue at the start, but building up the miles. That's a quick time as well, splitting the Mercedes. And he only had 5 thousandths to jump in between them, and he managed it.
Same F2 team as Isaac Hadjar, so they're able to have a like-for-like comparison. They've run him in FP1 as well, and the Red Bull development program, prestigious when it comes to bringing drivers through. Whether you can stay, it's entirely down to you. Final 3 minutes of FP1. Gabriel Bortoleto was at one point a McLaren Junior, released from that program as he joined what is now the Audi team. Impressed with 5 point scoring finishes last year in a team that had some seasons struggled to score any. So he was, when he got to the European rounds, impressive behind the wheel. The Brazilian finds himself 8th in the classification, ahead of the 3rd place finisher in the championship last year, Oscar Piastri. If you are just pressing play and checking the order, Lando Norris with a gearbox issue, Alex Albon with a hydraulic failure, Aston Martin unable to run as they would like. And we're into the final few minutes of a session that's flown by. Arvid Lindblad, set to become the youngest ever British F1 driver. I guess the graphics team have erred on the side of caution, given what happened to the previous occupant in that car 1 year ago. We're expecting it to be dry on Sunday.
And they have historically had a brutal ideology with young drivers, haven't they? Liam Lawson was in the Red Bull, got dropped after 2 races, so you can never cut your chickens that he's going to do that, Lindblad. But if he carries on like this, he absolutely will. Going even quicker this time around. It's quick on the straights. So I think Racing Bull's obviously showing a little bit more of their full potential with Lindblad here. I would say they were maybe hiding plenty more of their full potential in testing. Now they're starting to show this level of pace, even in FP1. Audi flashes up towards the line.
Fastest middle sector. P5's no bad way to start your first World Championship round as a full-time driver. And that's a very useful voice to have in your ear. The fantastic communication between Pierre Hamlin and many drivers through the years has been notable at that team.
A lot of fast young drivers coming through, and Lindblad is certainly looking like he's one of them. If what we've seen so far is anything to go by, he's hit the ground running in Formula 1, hasn't he? Leclerc going quickly. Piastri, as you can see, has just done the fastest first sector. So what we're seeing here is the track getting better and better, but also the teams understanding the cars better and finding maybe the sweet spot of energy deployment and harvesting. There's so much more to learn, especially in FP1, than there has been in recent years, with a stable set of regulations and loads of historical data to turn up and know what you're doing. Leclerc, there we go, that's a lap. Nearly half a second quicker than Hamilton.
He unleashes it at the end. We're going to get a like-for-like comparison. Oscar Piastri, fastest first sector of anyone so far. Home favourite, heading to the line.
He's miles away in the middle sector. 8/10 off Leclerc there. So, closes out the lap 1 second away. Still makes an improvement overall on the lap time. But that is basically in the straight. McLaren dropping massive time compared to Ferrari. That's a Mercedes power unit in the back of the McLaren that has been fully rumoured to be the standard heading in towards this year. So are they still holding plenty back? Ferrari surely just showed a little bit more of their hand, which they're not afraid to do at the moment with Leclerc there, but they have set a decent benchmark.
It's been a rapid session for the Ferraris. Charles Leclerc ahead of Lewis Hamilton, and then it's Max Verstappen and Isaac Hadjar, then Lindblad, Piastri, Russell, Antonelli, and then the Audi pair of Bortoleto and Hulkenberg. The second half completed by Esteban Ocon, Carlos Sainz, then it's Liam Lawson, Oliver Behrman, Alex Albon, who pulled out of the session with a hydraulic issue, and then Colapinto, Bottas, Gasly, Norris with the gearbox issue, Perez, who had the spin, and the Aston Martins continue their struggles with no meaningful lap time on the board. Max Verstappen and Red Bull will not be happy to be half a second off the Ferrari's pace at the end there. But given how complex it is to build your own power unit in Formula 1 with a massive regulation change, Red Bull Powertrains and Ford will be smiling to find themselves 3rd and 4th in the classification at the end. Good effort for them. And Verstappen will head back to the pits to begin the debrief We'll have another hour later on as well, as we trail back to the pits. And Isaac Hadjar now in your picture, originally from Paris, a young Frenchman earning his opportunity, and we'll find out whether he can continue this momentum after a really, really tricky debut that wasn't 1 year ago. What a story to come back here as a Formula 1 podium finisher, and one who seems to have a competitive car underneath him. But you have to say, Arvid Lindblad, what a story. P5 for the British rookie is lining up for a practice start. Alan Permain, team principal at Racing Bulls, will be delighted. He said that before Arvid Lindblad scored the fifth fastest time in the opening practice session. He's been very impressed with the young driver's confidence, his feedback, and his overall pace, which he's proven again here to be P5 ahead of Oscar Piastri. At the front, Charles Leclerc, Lewis Hamilton, Max Verstappen, and Isaac Hadjar. Then we get to Piastri, and if you're wondering what happened to the other McLaren, there is the sight for you. A gearbox inspection, and Fernando Alonso not even completing an installation lap as Aston Martin's troubles continue. They will hope to get some running across the course of the weekend. But as they explained yesterday to the world's media, they're running severely limited due to the power unit providing so many vibrations to the chassis. And Lewis Hamilton finding himself with a practice start. You have to wait, as per the regulations here, for the car in front to disappear. Otherwise you get a telling off. It's not major, it's just the